Here to talk about that, Lisa Ruth, former CIA analyst and currently an analyst with Lignet. Lisa, it is good to have you here this morning. And as we're together on this Monday morning, shed some light, if you will, on what is going on now in Iraq.
Well, what we're hearing for right now is that, as you said, the Kurds have retaken the dam, although there is still fierce fighting in the area. ISIS has not yet retreated, according to witnesses on the ground, but it is certainly a very positive sign.
Well, how much air power is involved? Have American military strategists and planners moved away from the pin-prick strategy to a more conventional use of air power?
It seems that we're getting there. We're starting to do more airstrikes, more offensive airstrikes rather than simply defensive. And there is no question that the effort has expanded at this point. And again, we started with the humanitarian, of course, and now we're into a little bit more of an offensive strategy.
Lisa, we hear so much about ISIS and its use of social media. Maybe a more conventional way for the Kurds to issue statements from the front lines. This statement from a Kurdish commander, and we'll be able to see it on, well, actually, I will read it to you, quoting now. Now the Islamic State knows we have the Air Force protecting us, and they're on the run. So we talked about more air power, Lisa. We hear that statement from the Kurdish commander. You say it's a little too early, but does this portend a re-entry into more military action for the United States in Iraq?
I do think we've crossed the threshold. I think we are. I think we're going to avoid boots on the ground, at least saying that. I think we're going to see more and more explanation of military advisors. I think we're going to see more specialists coming and more airstrikes. Now, and in correlation with that, we know that Cameron of the UK is talking about expanding their role. There is a NATO meeting in Wales next month where he has said he's going to push for more involvement. So I think the U.S. presence will be a part of that, but I do think it's going to be expanded from what it is now.
So there have been others. You mentioned the UK and obviously France and other NATO members getting weapons to the Kurds, but the American involvement was key, and at long last that has finally taken place. Politically in Iraq, al-Maliki finally stepping down as prime minister. Is that another sign of progress?
It certainly is a positive sign. The question is how much impact it's going to have in terms of being able to keep Iraq together, which I'm not sure we can even do at this point. But it is positive. We do have at least an opportunity for a more inclusive government. Now, he has 30 days, or I guess we're now at about 27 days, to form a government. That has not yet happened. That will be the next really big hurdle, and we'll see how that plays out. If he's able to do that, if the Kurds and the Sunnis agree, I think then we can say that is a very positive sign. But we really don't know yet.
There still seems to be uncertainty about what is transpiring on Mount Sinjar. We last week thought there could actually be American boots on the ground involved in a so-called humanitarian mission. Then we hear from the Pentagon, you know, it's not as bad as we thought. What's the story from Mount Sinjar and in other areas of Iraq with continued persecution of Christians and other religious minorities in the view of that modern-day caliphate known as ISIS?
We are still seeing problems there. As you said, when we thought the original statement was the U.S. was going to go in boots on the ground because there were several thousands, hundreds of thousands, I guess, or tens of thousands. Now they say, oh, there's only thousands. You know, it seems to me a sort of silly statement. If we're going to save people, we're going to save people. But we have backed off. ISIS did make an announcement again on social media about 15 minutes ago that they are going to marry the women that they've captured to ISIS fighters. So certainly this is still continuing. There were more beheadings. They found another 30 people. ISIS has not cut back, pardon the terminology. There's no indication that they're moderating in any sense or really backing off.
Now, the use of social media by ISIS. For years, we were informed, hey, you know, we really shouldn't show these graphic images because it inflames the terror groups. The terror groups are happy to use horrible images of beheading. What In terms of the psychology of warfare and persuasion, will this strengthen resolve or intimidate people who see this?
I think that if you look at the social media, and certainly with Twitter, when the airstrikes started, there was a huge emphasis by ISIS and by jihadi supporters. They went on and really threatened the United States and showed awful images of Americans on fire and the U.S. flag being burned, but really disfiguring photos. This does seem to inflame them. It seems to encourage them. That said, I'm not sure ISIS needs a whole lot of encouragement. You know, they're really getting a lot of supporters, and a lot of that comes from the success they're having on the ground.
So as we look at what has transpired, mindful that hindsight is always 20/20, I'm going to ask for your foresight. What is the best situation, short-term, long-term, in Iraq now?
Well, short term, I think that the best we can do is try to contain ISIS. Unless there's going to be a worldwide agreement that we're going to go in and really take care of these guys. It's highly unlikely that the Iraqi military or the Kurds are going to be able to take them out at this point. That said, there is an opportunity. Certainly the airstrikes are showing we can contain them and at least hopefully maybe drive them back into Syria, for example, which is a whole nother area. Iraq long term, I think it will be incredibly difficult for it to reform as a central government. I find that highly unlikely at this point. The question is how much it's going to disintegrate, how much it's going to fragment, and how much violence we're going to see.
Questions that are not easily answered, which is why it's always good to get your intelligence analysis. Just wanted to know, we've had General Michael Hayden on, certainly a guy who understands intelligence and realpolitik. He remains convinced, as he told us on Friday, that it is very difficult to see Iraq remaining intact in the days or years ahead. Do you share that analysis?
Again, I think it will be, there could be a central government. The question is whether that central government has any control. And really, if you take a look at Iraq even now, the central government has very little control over a lot of it. There's the northern region it doesn't control. There are other areas where Shiite militias effectively rule independently. I really think the question is going to be, are we going to break down into 3 states or 20 states? The Sunni state, for example, people talk about, but yet there are Sunni groups that refuse to work together or live together. So we're going to have 2 Sunni states. What about the Christians? Where do they go? You know.
And right now, it seems that many of the Christians are facing, well, extermination. More persecution, yes, but extermination. And in terms of the world standard of genocide, it would appear both in international law and reality, we're seeing a genocide in Iraq, especially in northern Iraq.
Absolutely, and as you know, the UN even defined it as a level 3 crisis, which is genocide. And this is something that, unless there's movement very, very quickly, I don't see how we're going to be able to stop this. Given
the American dispensation, or given the reluctance, I guess the way to put it, for seeing boots on the ground, intelligence, air assets have to come together. Do we have enough of an intelligence capability to make a difference?
I think we have some intelligence capability, and I think if you look at what we've done, it suggests that we kind of have some insight into what's going on and who we're going to be supporting. My guess is we have stronger intelligence with the Kurds right now, and that's part of an effort. We've decided we're backing the Kurds for good reason, and I think that that's where the emphasis is going to be, both in terms of intelligence and military. And they want to work with us. Now, throughout the rest of the country, there is intelligence, but it's also going to be much more limited by the fighting and by the violence.
And Lisa Ruth, we always appreciate your insights and analysis. And for more analysis on ISIS and the battle for Iraq, why don't you check out the website Lignet, that's lignet.com. Stay with us. When we come back, will Florida be the next state to legalize medical marijuana? We'll take a look at what is transpiring in Florida as America's Forum continues here on Newsmax TV.